Hi, I'm John from Just Another Horror Podcast, and welcome to 31 and 31. This is the fourth installment of this series. Last year we only got through 7. This year, we're going for 31. We're actually going to do it this time. You can find our show, Just Another Horror Podcast, on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. I believe it's on iTunes as well, so check it out. However you want to check out podcasts, we're on there. This month, we're actually reviewing most of the Critters series, and then we're also going to review the new Halloween from 2018, the newest, because it's been 2 years, I guess. But I'm going to start this series off by reviewing all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies that we have not reviewed in some way, shape, or form, including that one. Can you believe that? We've reviewed Replicator. We haven't reviewed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This movie is regarded as a classic, and I get it. 1973... there wasn't anything like that back then except for 3 on a Meat Hook. See my review of that from 2 years ago. This movie is a bit of a slog. It's 47 years old. That's, for a movie that's old. Not for people, but for a movie that's old. And you can kind of tell it's a product of its time, but it's still pretty horrifying. The thing that a lot of people like to bring up is that Tobe Hooper thought this was going to be like a PG movie, because I just watched it last night, and really there isn't anything gory in the movie. It's gross, but it's not gory, and I don't think he had like a grasp on like what people would consider R. This is a tough watch. There are parts of it that make you go, ugh. So it still holds up after 47 years. Specifically, when the first character gets hit on the head with a mallet, drops down, starts seizuring, that sound, that thick thud that it makes on his head. Ugh. And then the woman being put on the hook, that's also just, and she has to hang there while her boyfriend gets all cut up with a chainsaw. And it's all implied, all of it. The other thing that's implied in this that Tobe Hooper thought people would get, and they definitely don't, is this movie is meant to be funny, like super funny. Like, the reason that they build up at the beginning how nonchalant they are about killing the cattle. Here, just watch this scene.
Roll up the window. Hey, that's Silver Slaughterhouse. That's where Grandpa used to sell his cattle. Hey, we got an uncle that works at one of those places outside of Fort Worth. Hey, you see those buildings there? That's where they kill them. They bash them in the head with a big sledgehammer.
Oh, that's awful.
It usually wouldn't kill them on the first lick. Start squealing and freaking out and everything, and then have to come up and bash them 2 or 3 times. And then sometimes it wouldn't kill them. I mean, they'd skin them sometimes even before they were even dead.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah. People shouldn't kill animals for food.
Oh, well, they don't do it like that anymore. Now they got this big air gun that shoots a bolt into their skull and then retracts it. It's just boom, goes boom, and
Franklin, I like me. Please change the subject. Yeah, that's terrible. It's still going on.
Oh, it's hot, hey.
See, they're just talking about it like, yeah, they hit him on the head, they shoot him in the head, it's fine, eat the meat, whatever. We then meet this family that kind of treats human beings the same way. They're like, yeah, gotta eat, so what are you gonna do? Like, even the grandfather is like, I don't really like to kill people, but, you gotta eat, so what are you gonna do? And everything about the dynamic of that family, like, they're psychopaths, but they still have a family dynamic to them. So he thought that people would see that dynamic and be like, oh my God, these people are so backwards. Instead, they were, rightfully horrified. So to correct this problem, he upped the humor to a completely different degree in the second movie, which we're going to check out tomorrow, which is actually my favorite of the series. This series is all over the place, by the way. I've discussed it in the other movies that I've reviewed or we've reviewed on the show. This series does not want to stay in one place. It keeps revamping itself every single one of these movies has the same kind of thing going on. A group of kids end up at a place, a gas station, meet somebody, think he's good. Turns out that guy is the head of the family. It happens over and over again. It happens with Viggo Mortensen. It happens with Matthew McConaughey. It happens with Arlie Emery or whatever, however you pronounce his last name. It just keeps happening. Except in part 2. That's not what happens in part 2. But we're not here to talk about part 2 yet. Part 1 is what we're talking about. There is one thing about this movie that drives me completely nuts. My kid's been watching a lot of Angry Video Game Nerd lately. Good for him. But that guy plays the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game for Atari. And all you do in that game is you are Leatherface and you chase Sally around and try to kill her with a chainsaw in a field somewhere. And I'm like, there's more to this movie, right? Right? When Marilyn Burns is the only survivor left, I swear the chase scene takes 25 minutes. I didn't realize how long it was. I don't know how she can keep running and yelling for help this entire time while Leatherface is also seemingly full of endurance because he's chasing her around with a chainsaw. And this goes on for a really, really long time. Like super long. I didn't realize. The end of this movie, the last scene, Marilyn Burns, that thing goes on for like 35 minutes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it just felt like that. But it did feel like that. I mean, it felt like it was just never going to end. And that's where I'm kind of like, these old movies and their pacing, sometimes it doesn't work. Like, Jaws seems to work, and Jaws is a longer movie than this. But this movie, big time pacing issues. And, you know, Tobe Hooper isn't the world's greatest director. I just recently watched a movie called The Funhouse that he directed. And he had Rick Baker doing the effects, so you'd think this movie, you know, had a lot going for it. And it felt like it did, but the pacing was really bad. And by the time the characters are in danger, you're an hour into the movie. Nothing has happened. So, Tobe Hooper has pacing issues is what I'm getting at here. Overall, it's a good horror movie. It's fine. I'm not trying to be edgy here by saying it's not great. It's fine. It's not fun because, you know, people are just getting mutilated and tortured. And it's not bad because, damn, he knows how to work a camera and he really likes to zoom in on the victims' faces to really show the emotion of what's happening to them and, like, the horror. But, goddamn, it takes forever to get going. And then when it does, it just kind of like flatlines for about a half hour. So I would say if you haven't seen it, check it out at least once. It is a classic. But I would recommend the one we're going to review tomorrow much more than this. It all depends on your taste. All right, see you tomorrow.